everybody? Welcome back. This is episode 2 of the Kayfabe Brigade. We are still talking about the G1, obviously. We're still in the middle of it. We're covering four nights total this time around, so 2 nights each of Block A and Block B.
Yeah, these span from September 23rd to September 29th.
We're a little bit behind because we've been waiting for the English commentary versions to come out. There's a lot of storytelling going on, especially in this G1. So it's helpful to get the commentary in English. So we've been waiting. So it takes a couple of days for each one to post. So
yeah,
we're gonna keep doing it in four night blocks until the end of it.
Which will be two
cut down.
2 days of Block A and 2 days of Block B, because since they alternate. I think that would probably be a good enough time to talk about the commentary team then. So because so it's Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero now. They usually have a third man, Chris Charlton, who is usually their translator on site and also provides historical context for the matches. But it's just Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero, and by now they've worked out the kinks. They've done a couple shows where they've had them record commentary post match commentary, like after the fact, like archived.
Right.
And it sounds a lot better now. There's not as much of an issue with the levels being wrong. I remember on one of the earlier shows, their voice levels kind of drowned out the action in the crowd. That is not the case anymore. The balance has been found, because obviously they're off-site. They're not there. Kevin Kelly is, in my opinion, one of the best commentators. He just knows exactly how to tell a story. He cares so much about the product. He's always constantly talking about how he tries to keep himself unspoiled, and he knows the story because he's a fan too. Kevin Kelly is people have their nitpicks with him. Some people don't like how he does the Destino call. I can see that, but Naito being one of my favorite guys, I always get a little kick out of it. Yeah. And then Rocky Romero is a fun color guy because he's also a wrestler, and he has his own feuds with some of them.
Yeah, and he's still active wrestler. Yeah,
so he plays off. He doesn't like he's part of Chaos with Okada, so he doesn't like any of the Bullet Club members. So he's always constantly railing on them and talking about how much he hates them, which is a great addition to the commentary. So, but yeah, it's been a great boon, and it's helped us get the narrative of the matches a lot better this go around.
It's been really good. The commentary is awesome. We did the first round having just watched the Japanese with Japanese commentary, and definitely a lot more context available when you know the storytelling angles that are going on. Before we get started, I thought it was interesting. The PWI 500 is on newsstands finally, and 12 of the 20 competitors are in the top 100, and 18 of the 20 are on the list. There's only 2 that are not, so it's no surprise these matches have mostly been really good.
Yeah. I believe the 2 that are not on the list is Yujiro Takashi and Yoshihashi.
That is correct.
I think it's hard to argue against Yujiro, but I mean, considering what's been happening this G1, Yoshihashi might be a little bit more of a viable contender, especially next year.
Yeah. So that's interesting, but it has nothing to do with the action itself.
Yeah, just goes to show you how much of a stacked roster New Japan has, and basically always had, especially since 2010's on. Basically, one of the most stacked singles wrestling rosters out there.
And they have 2 of the top 10, so they have like 20% of the top 10.
Yeah.
All right, let's kick it off with Night 3.
So, Night 3 kicked off with Jeff Cobb defeating Shingo Takagi. This was a match that has run last G1. I would have to rewatch it to figure out which one I liked more. Cobb's on a roll so far. He's a lot better than he was last G1, and Shingo is one of those wrestlers, when he's wrestling his style of match, which he did not against Jay White, but he definitely did here. He's just one of the absolute funnest wrestlers to watch out there.
Yeah. It was aggressive right from the start. They're trading chops almost immediately. They had met before. Was it at Battle of Los Angeles?
Yeah, the PWG Battle of Los Angeles tournament. It was actually a 3-way. It was them against Bandito. So it wasn't exactly a singles rematch, but they have had history. And I remember I've seen Bola 2018 when it came out, and I remember them having really great chemistry, which paid off here. Just suplexes on suplexes in this match. Mm-hmm. Just so many suplexes. There was a great sort of story being told about Cobb's size. They didn't play up his size as much last G1, but here it was about how big he is. There were moments where Shingo was struggling to hit suplexes, and there were moments where he'd have to rebound him off the ropes in order to hit Saito suplexes. Just great playing up his size like that.
And then Cobb would get a nasty belly-to-belly, and then they look so brutal when he lands them.
Yeah, he's strong. He's one of those athletic big guys who has a lot of strength in him. But there was a moment where Shingo runs at a pumping bomber and Cobb does the full inside out spot. It just flips completely over. It's like he's just so athletic for how big he is.
He is big too. I didn't realize how big he was.
Yeah. Cobb hits him with a rebound German suplex, kind of like how Shingo hit him with the rebound off the ropes, and then he hits the Tour of the Islands, and Cobb wins. He just feels like a bigger star.
It's a great finish. It's one of my favorite finishes probably so far.
Yeah. A very explosive and quick match. Definitely fighting against each other's paces, which was great. The next match was not nearly as fun to watch.
Did we say who won? Oh, yeah, Cobb won.
So, Okada defeats Yujiro in the second match of this night, and...
Oh, boy. Yeah.
At this point, I'm starting to feel like it's kind of a miracle that Ospreay had such an entertaining match against Yujiro, because this was no better and might even have been worse than the previous Okada-Yujiro match. I guess they're telling the story about Okada. I will say the finish of this match does play into the Jay White match, which we'll get into later. But he does win with his Cobra Clutch here.
Finally won with it. Did something with it. I mean, for most of it, I felt like it was like Yujiro cheats and Okada retaliates.
Yeah, which is a standard. It's just a standard match type for Okada versus a Bullet Club member. Is they're gonna cheat. They're gonna cheat, and he's gonna have to slip through it to get a win. But it's also kind of strange to see Okada working fourth from the top. He's in a second match of the night, and he's just nowhere near the marquee at this point.
Sure.
But he does use his Cobra Clutch, the money clip, to win, and that does set up the story for the Jay White match.
Have they been calling it the money clip the whole time?
It was. I don't think they were calling it.
I heard them actually say a Cobra Clutch early on.
They did. They did. They've named it now. They've named it now. I think they just forget sometimes whether to call it that because it's such a. I mean, no one likes this, and hopefully, we'll definitely get into. I think I know what they're doing, and I think it's going to be interesting. But as this match stands, if it wasn't for the Jay White match, I would have been worried about Okada for sure. Because this was, it was mercifully short. I'll say that. Next match, we have Taichi defeating Minoru Suzuki in a very interesting match. They're both part of the Suzuki-gun faction, and that played a big part of this match.
Right. Suzuki didn't wait for the belt.
No.
Yeah, they're just instantly going at it.
Yeah, just pure brawling. There's the storyline sort of with Suzuki-gun is that, especially played into last year how Suzuki was not in the G1. But, Suzuki's getting older. He's in his 50s. Someone's going to lead. And there seems to be sort of... Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. seem to be the two forerunners for who's going to take over. And this felt like Suzuki sort of being like, I'm not done yet. Like, I still got some fight in me, and you're not going to take this from me.
Right.
There were ref bumps. There were chair battles. There were fights on the outside. The majority of the early part of this match was on the outside. This is very unlike a G1 match. There was a lot of outside shenanigans and a lot of weapon shenanigans. But I actually thought that played well to the story. There was my favorite moment of the match is I think when Taichi on the outside just took his pants off completely untheatrically, because that's a sort of big moment is he stands in the middle of the ring, whips him off and makes a big scene out of it. But he was all business here. It was might be the first time I've ever seen Taichi do that. But I loved that. It was a great sort of character moment there.
Yeah, I think he's really been surprising me a lot in this tournament.
Yeah,
it's been good. He's had a lot of good stuff. I don't know. I didn't have a predisposed thing against him because I just wasn't exposed to him, so I guess maybe I'm a little more forgiving. But I don't know. I've been kind of digging him a little bit.
Yeah,
against my better,
Taichi's great. He's leading. I mean, he's leading in his block. We'll get down to it when we get to the end. But he's picking a lot of wins early on. The match ends with Taichi countering out of a gotch attempt into a Saito suplex, and then he gets him up for the Black Mephisto. He never went for his glove either. The glove he inherited that he uses for cheap shots, he never went for it either. So it was sort of a very disrespectful and at the same time respectful match between two people and like a master and his people sort of thing.
Right.
It was very brutal.
Ishii versus Ospreay.
So Will Ospreay defeating Ishii in this match. This was probably the match of the night.
Oh man.
This was a match
to this point, it was maybe my favorite match of the tournament.
Yeah.
I think I wrote that down.
Yeah. This is a matchup that has never happened before, and I sort of just figured this was going to be one to look out for. Ospreay honestly looks bigger than Ishii here.
So he's not adapted his style a whole lot, except for everything he does just has so much more weight.
Yeah.
So he can, it's a mix of aerial and like slugger, and this was brutal because of that. Because normally he would be taller, but he would look smaller because his frame wasn't so big. But yeah, he's so big now. It has to have made it more brutal than it would have been a year ago.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just for the fact of the power behind his punches and things.
Yeah, he's holding his own against Ishii. He's meeting him on the power game, which is not something that would have happened a year ago. He's able to keep the pace with Ishii, with the forearms and with the lariats, and he's able to eat shots.
Stuff. Just transition after transition. There's the leaping headbutt where he kind of jumps up. It looks so nasty. Oh my god, just the dullest meaty thud.
Yeah.
Well, I think he did it twice.
Yeah, Ospreay is climbing up he's climbing up for a top rope move, but he never gets a chance to because Ishii's right under him, and he just basically torpedoes himself into his chin from underneath. It was just nasty. They have a surprising amount of chemistry. There was a lot of interesting reversals here. There was one moment where Ishii's running for a sliding lariat, and Ospreay arm drags him out of it, which just was insane.
It had like the pace of a high-flying match, but it was like mostly grounded. It was just so fast. It felt like you're not watching a bunch of spots really necessarily a bunch, but it was just so fast-paced.
Ishii's sort of story early on in the G1 right now is that he needs to hit that brain buster. It keeps being built up as just the kill move, and it always has been the kill move. Not very many people have kicked out of his brain buster, but he hasn't won one match in the G1, and he needs to hit that brain buster. So there was a great sequence towards the end where he's just, his story is he's got to fight for that brain buster, and Ospreay has just a counter for everything. There was one moment where Ospreay does get him into the Stormbreaker position, and Ishii gives some resistance, and so he couldn't finish the maneuver, so he turns it into sort of like Chuck Taylor's Awful Waffle. He just drops him like an inverted pile driver sort of thing. I love quick thinking like that. It gives an added sort of psychology towards it when you can, when you're being blocked and you turn it into something else. It keeps your opponent on your toes. I love things like that.
It was like a war of attrition.
Yeah.
Give and take and give and take and give and take. It wasn't not necessarily like 50-50 or whatever, but it was so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
These two guys that you would maybe beforehand not think. It's just that the styles with his size, it's not a clash of styles really, but I don't know. I just didn't expect such a classic from these two for some reason. I don't know why. It's
the sort of match that leads me to think, there are new Ospreay matchups that I wouldn't have been interested in before. Now
that makes sense.
Now that I know that he can work at this style, or that his style can be incorporated into like the strong style more effectively, that it makes me more excited. So Ospreay wins with just an absolutely killer looking hidden blade, and then into the Stormbreaker, and takes out Ishii. Ishii has not won a match yet. So then we move on to our main event, in which Jay White defeats Kota Ibushi. I thought this was interesting booking, because this is Ibushi's second G1 match, and it is his other Wrestle Kingdom match. So the first match he got was against Okada, and the second match he got is against Jay White, which is who he wrestled the second night after he lost to Okada in the first night.
Yeah.
Interesting dynamic there, that he gets both of those matches up front, and they work out in very different ways.
Jay versus the crowd was like the secondary match here too.
Yeah.
He's not stopping with trying to taunt the crowd into booing and cheering. Ibushi. He keeps doing that.
It was great.
He worked his knee over. That was the one thing. He kept creating injuries to work over.
Yeah.
Jay did. The knee on the apron.
Yeah. Yeah, the knee and the neck were his two targets for sure. Yeah. The neck is sort of like, that's the Achilles heel for Ibushi, so it made complete sense. I just think Jay White's control segments are just amazing. Mm-hmm. I just love when he picks an opponent apart like that. There was not a whole lot of Goto interference in this match, which was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that's true.
There was a great spot where, there's the classic spot where the two wrestlers are on the ground and they're doing the slap fight. But Jay White is slapping his knee. He's slapping Ibushi's knee because he's a good pro wrestler. Right. Thinks about these things when he has a match layout and he has a story he's trying to tell. He'll change his behavior because he's a good pro wrestler, and it makes complete sense to do something like that. So I love that. There's also a great moment where going after the knee, and he puts him in the TTO, the Tanahashi tap out, the sort of inverted figure 4 that he used to take out Tanahashi when he was feuding with him last year.
Right.
And they keep drawing parallels to Tanahashi and Ibushi, so I thought that played off pretty well. The Jay White wins with a reversal into the Blade Runner after Ibushi attempts a Kamigoye. Shenanigans are kept to their minimum, and I thought this was one of the better Jay White matches.
Yeah,
I was glad to see this match after the first one, because it was easy to see me believe, he can still do a solid match without a whole lot of interference and tell a great story.
It's important to see that every once in a while. It's okay, because I'm sure the fuckery's coming back and all that.
Yeah, of course.
But it is good to show, that he's not a knucklehead or anything. He knows what he's doing. He's so fun to watch. I love watching Jay White.
Yeah. So you move on to day 4 of the second day of B Block, this is. And that opens with Hirooki Goto defeating Sonata. I didn't really have a whole lot to say going in. There's not a whole lot of story going in.
It's going to be the case with some of these matches going forward. We're not always going to have some of them are just kind of there.
Yeah. And the issue with Goto this year, there's just, when he has to work babyface, the crowd's just not buying into him. Because
he's really late to start offense.
Yeah.
It's kind of if that's it's a weird approach. I don't know.
These are both wrestlers that I like but have issues with, and so I have a lot of issues with this match.
Sure.
Sonata's skull end finishing sequence is really boring to me. Goto takes forever to get the pace hit, and then most of his offense is just iterations on the GTR finishing move, all of which look more nasty than his actual finishing move.
Yeah, there's so many reversals, and it's not fun with the Ospreay match we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's funny the commentators picked this match to start kind of be putting over the B block as the Bad News Bears kind of anything can happen block. They're talking about stuff that's not even really going on in the match.
Yeah.
Because there's just not a whole lot going on in the match.
But for the most part, this match was just kind of there. It wasn't any really, it was a G1 night opener basically. Yeah. Goto wins with just a standard GTR after a punt, which is it is what it is.
Yano versus Tanahashi.
Yeah, I will continue to cape for Toru Yano in this G1. I love his mind.
It's fun. Seeing Tanahashi play along in that, doing a Yano match.
Yeah,
was interesting because I haven't seen him do that. I haven't really seen him do the comedy like that.
No, I do the turnbuckle guitar spots.
Yes,
they have a guitar off. My favorite moment was probably when Yano is holding the turnbuckle that he's removed, and Tanahashi dragon screws the turnbuckle, and somehow that leads Yano to fly. Rocky Romero also is caping for Yano really hard, and I appreciate that. He's apparently Rocky Romero's pick to win the G1 is apparently Yano, which is really entertaining. They always do my favorite thing that the English commentators do when someone they like it does some sort of interference thing or does breaks the rules. They're like, oh my camera, my feed went down. I couldn't see anything.
I didn't see it.
I was also a little impressed with Yano. He got blindfolded by his tape. Tanahashi got a hold of it and blindfolded him.
Yeah.
And he honestly, he gets back in the ring while blindfolded. I honestly thought he was going to get counted out due to not being able to find the ring. I thought that was kind of where that spot was going to go. Right. But he actually wrestled a minute and a half blindfolded.
It's like this.
Yeah.
It's just, if he can see anything, it's just out of the bottom of it. So he really he really was handicapped. Just as an athlete, forget about even the character.
Yeah.
The athlete is handicapped by that thing over his face. It was great. And
yeah.
Then into the low blow sequence, ref bump.
Yeah, as usual. The Yano special, and then Yano took it. So we have Toru Yano at this point is 4 points, and Tanahashi is 0. This is not atypical, but it's certainly interesting. All right, so match 3 is Juice Robinson defeating Kento. This was a chance for Juice to sort of go back and revisit the sort of attitude that he had last G1, because you can't really go into a match with Kento and not bring the intensity. So I did see a little bit of that here, and I did appreciate that. This match was sort of just a standard affair between the two. Not a whole lot of heel work from Kento. He did that a little bit his first match in the G1, but not so much here. This was just some forearm battles.
Right.
This wasn't the peak Kenta match or peak Juice match. It was just kind of a match.
I don't know. I feel like pacing-wise, there were a few matches, quite a few matches during both of these nights that felt like that, paced like that.
Yeah. There was definitely an issue this night. The middle of the card kind of lagged a little bit. Basically, there's not really a great match until the main event from here on out. So Juice does take it with the left hand of God into the Pulp Friction. Kenta has not hit the go to sleep at this point. This was close to the Juice we got last year, but overall not anything to write home about.
Yeah.
The next match is Yoshihashi versus Evil. They were definitely telling a specific story in this one, and I guess I can't say the execution was bad. Yeah. It's just Yoshihashi. The Yoshihashi, they're definitely running with Yoshihashi being like a supreme underdog in this, and the crowd is receptive to cheering him on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's going against Evil, a recently former IWGP heavyweight champion and Intercontinental champion.
Yeah.
This didn't feel like it needed to go 17 minutes.
Right.
The Yoshihashi elevation can only go so far. I think this might have been stepping a little bit too far out of his bounds. Evil does win with his Everything is Evil move after a low blow. I put meh after this. I get what they were going for, but it doesn't really work with me. So the main event, Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. This was a very fun match.
Oh my goodness, it was awesome. Naito's like cautious in the beginning. He's careful. Zack Sabre Jr.'s going around like a maniac. Cocky. He's being cocky kind of like with Naito. I like this a lot. I like the interplay between the two guys. Yeah. Even when they weren't wrestling. Like, it's great stuff.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part about the dynamic of this match is that the first part of it, we got some wrist lock, we got some mat work going on. Yeah. It's sort of Naito wrestling a Zack Sabre Jr. match.
Yes, exactly.
Naito's focusing on Zack's neck. We see submissions from Naito here and there, but nowhere to this extent. Like, they are wrestling Zack's kind of match. Mm-hmm. There was a turn, though. There was a turn toward the middle of the match where it turned into Zack trying to meet at Naito's game, which was really great.
He sort of steered it towards a brawl.
There was a tornado DDT on the ropes, sort of like what Naito does, except it was on the turnbuckle. It just you don't see that kind of offense by Zack very often. It was very close quarters too. I don't know if they once really left the ring or anything, or really left much distance between each other. There was one spot where Naito hits a killer neck breaker to Zack outside of the ring area, just like he's holding him, he's like dangling him off of the apron, and just completely just kills his neck out there. I wouldn't want to be a wrestler when Naito decides to pick on your neck. The Ibushi matches from a couple years ago have taught us that. The other important story that they're telling here, and that they've told for the first two nights now, is that Naito goes to the limit. This match was 28 minutes.
Thinking, okay, we could be heading towards the draw.
Yeah.
Time limit draw.
And I think at some point, that this has led me to believe...
27 minutes for the other match?
27 minutes for the match with Tanashi, and it was 28 minutes with this match. Yeah. In my predictions, I did put one draw, and it was a Naito match. It was against Sonata. We'll see if this plays out how I believe it'll play out. But my idea here is that they want you to think Sonata will be the winner. He may well be the winner of the G1, I don't know. The issue with having the world champion in your G1 is that it's not as much of a seller if the main event of your Wrestle Kingdom is him against a guy he already wrestled in the G1. So if you have Sonata tie with Naito, considering he keeps going to the limit, then there's a story to tell. There, people can be like, oh, he didn't actually win that match against Naito. Right. Maybe he'll get his chance at Wrestle Kingdom, and that sort of gives you an option. Yeah. So I don't know if that's what that's leading to, but I feel like one of these matches is going to end up being a draw. I don't know with who, but Naito keeps going right up to it. The match ends when Naito reverses out of a Zack driver, hit basically Zack's one big power move that's not a submission, and hits a Destino. 28 minutes, Naito wins. This is a great match.
Awesome.
Night 5, we're back to Block A again. We open with Taichi versus Yujiro. Yeah, I have very little to say about this.
Just bad.
It is again, this solidified it. It's insane to me that Ospreay's match against Yujiro was that good. So it must have been an accident. This was nothing. All I'll say is Taichi's sitting at 6 points now.
Yeah.
He's winning too much. He's going to end up losing. He's going to lose that lead for sure. But, it was an interesting pick to go for as an early leader. That's basically all I can really take out of this match. Yujiro, I don't really know who else they could have put in there. Maybe they could have given Kojima another run in the G1, but he kind of is feeling like a waste of a slot at this point. So next match is Suzuki defeating Jeff Cobb. This is after Suzuki's loss to Taichi, and he did not react the way I expected.
He's like. It's like the opposite of what Zack Sabre Jr. was doing, where he was like being confident and stuff, or cocky. This is like the confident old, all-knowing journeyman, waiting and biding his time and being kind of not being cocky though, like wizened. I wrote that it's like he's Stu Hart and he's stretching Cobb in the basement.
It's exactly the dynamic that it sort of felt like.
Yeah,
he's like, oh, I got this Olympian here.
Exactly.
I'm just gonna teach him who's really the king here.
Because he's way littler than Cobb, but, probably shoot way tougher as well.
He's being disrespectful to Cobb. He's grabbing his hair. He's pinning him with his foot. He was just sort of like, he's almost sort of like, I can chew you up and spit you out. You're nothing. You're basically nothing.
You want more? And then I remember you mentioned something about, like, it felt like Cobb was holding back.
Yeah, which it made me a little worried. It kind of felt like Cobb was like, I don't want to hit this old man.
Right. Which is silly, because this guy probably chews nails.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was good, not great.
This felt more like they were just trying to tell a story of Suzuki was not gotten to after the Taichi loss, and he's still in this, and he's still, clear-headed. I do think it will bite him in the ass at some point, how he treated Cobb. If he treats certain other people like that, he might not end up so lucky. I definitely think when Suzuki wrestles Shingo will get his win back, and that might play into it for sure. A little disappointing considering what I think a Jeff Cobb-Suzuki match could be.
It definitely felt like it could have been more, but I did like the storytelling. I did like that story they were telling with Suzuki.
Yeah. Match 3 is Kota Ibushi defeating Tomohiro Ishii in another frontrunner for best match of the G1 so far.
I know. And it's an unfortunate thing where I have no notes because I was just watching it. It's just a slobber knocker. Just amazing. Great storytelling.
This is one of those Ishii, unfortunately, New Japan does not really view him as the kind of guy who can be a headliner for them and could be a world title holder. He's never really held a title of more prestige than like the Never Openweight for some reason. They just don't see him as like a main event guy.
Right.
But when you get him in the G1, he is maybe the best G1 wrestler out there. His match with Ospreay and then his match with Ibushi, two different kinds of matches, but also
very different opponents.
Yeah, very different opponents, but also just Ishii will always bring in no matter who he's wrestling. I remember last year he even got like a brawling sort of actual good match, actual good wrestling match out of Toru Yano. Like the fact that even happened, just Ishii's like nobody else. There were some great German suplex no sells. Bushi is meeting Ishii on the badass level for sure in this match.
Yeah, it's kind of a counter to the prior match.
Yeah, it flew by, absolutely flew by. It ended up being 15 minutes, and they packed in about 45 minutes worth of action.
Yeah, that's the opposite of the last one. Like, it was only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Ibushi flips out of a German suplex and immediately hits the Bomaye. If you watch WWE, the Kinshasa that Shinsuke Nakamura does.
Yeah.
And then he wins with the Kamigoye knee and takes it at that point. But then they decide to fight on the ground after the match.
They're was it while they were being attended to?
Yeah, the ring attendants are like the young lions
in the head.
Yeah,
I can't remember who instigated, but anyways, they're laying on the mat being attended to, still fighting with each other after the bell. It was awesome. Yeah, that was hilarious.
So 3 matches in to the G1, and Tomohiro Ishii, probably one of the best wrestlers in the world, is sitting at 0, and he can't get that grandbuster. I doubt he's going to win the G1, but it's kind of crazy, just like when you really think about it. And I don't think he was a big winner last year. How great of a wrestler he is, and yet how few times he actually wins matches.
It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
I love this guy.
So then next we have Shingo Takagi defeating Will Ospreay in a match that you could even argue was better, but was definitely different, and also one of the best matches of the G1 for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
These guys just have such great chemistry. These are two former juniors, meeting now as they're both solidified heavyweights. Ospreay is now able to meet him in the power game. He's playing up his power with shoulder tackle battles and lariats, and both of them have really quick, there was just an insane reversal exchange right at the beginning that was, I wrote, and then I noticed...
Sort of chaotic.
Yeah, I wrote the notes.
Crazy.
The crowd went wild. They went about as wild as
they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were hot for this.
Yeah.
The coast to coast when Shingo's hanging upside down. It's so far because these Japanese rings are 2 or 3 feet larger than WWE rings.
Yeah. I believe it's a 20-foot distance.
Yeah, it's a 20-foot ring at least. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It's 20 or 22. I think it's 20.
Yeah. Another thing, another way that you know that your G1 match is just insane is when you get the crowd to do the gasp. Even though they're not supposed to make any noise, you can hear the audible gasp.
Sometimes you just can't fight it.
You can't fight
it. It
it.
is an instinct.
Yeah.
It's happened. I feel like there was at least one instance with a boo, maybe, or something like that too.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just can't help it.
He does a rolling elbow at one point, which that sort of perked me up for a minute because I was like, oh, Will Ospreay's introducing new offense and it's strike-based offense. Maybe we're literally in the middle of seeing Ospreay's style change.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Maybe it's coming out in each match, and it'll have a cumulative effect.
The finish in this match was great. Just another example of how Shingo is just such a great pro wrestler. He runs for the pumping bomber off of the ropes, and Ospreay ducks it, but then Shingo is on the way back, and he hits him with a pumping bomber with the other arm.
Yeah.
It was just I'm hitting you with this pumping bomber.
It's gonna happen.
So then Shingo wins with the Last of the Dragon. This was just a brutal match.
Yep. On to the main event.
Yes, this was Jay White against Kazuchika Okada. I put in my pre-match notes, I would really like to start looking forward to Okada G1 matches again. I believe I can now.
Yes.
Because this match told an excellent story.
The fears of Okada actually having issues. It seems like it's a story.
Yeah.
He's not just selling back issues. They're talking about him having back issues
throughout the entire match.
Throughout the whole thing. Yeah. So it's clear that there's something going on.
This was actually a very noteworthy match because they're wrestling in Kobe, and 2 years ago, as Jay White brings up in his post match, because he does win, Jay White beats Okada.
Yes.
As he brings up in his post match. 2 years ago, almost to the day, this is when Goto and Jay White betrayed Okada in this very arena. So here they are meeting again 2 years later, same pairing, up against Okada. Okada's in an interesting position in storyline. It really played into it. I was worried that they weren't going to rise to such a setup, but they told an excellent story. Okada was kind of in Bret Hart mode here. He's not working as hard of a style, but he's telling that story. He's selling that back. He's getting what needs to be told over. It didn't make the match better, but it retroactively made the Yujiro match make sense.
Right. The
sort of Yujiro win, I guess the storyline would be that it led him to believe that the money clip could work.
Right.
The money clip was now a viable finisher for him, which it does not end up being the case, which is glad because I think the money clip sucks, and I'm glad to see a storyline about how the money clip sucks and Okada's being stubborn for using it.
Yeah.
The other thing that plays into it is that Jay White hasn't been submitted in years. I don't think he hasn't been submitted. I think they mentioned he hasn't been submitted since he was a young lion.
Oh wow.
And here's Okada trying to submit him.
Yeah.
And
why would you do that?
Why would you even? Yeah, you have the Rainmaker. There was an excellent moment of storytelling.
The Gato thing.
Where Jay White is pulling. It was just I don't even know if it was intentional, but I trust this company enough. I give them the benefit of the doubt that I'm willing to believe this was intentional. Where Jay White is pulling Okada up by the Rainmaker stance and basically puts himself in the extended Rainmaker for Okada, and if Okada wasn't stubborn, he would have, and he's done this before in matches, he would have just pulled him close and Rainmakered him.
Yeah.
There was a moment of offense that he just let slip, which was great. They also played into it when Goto literally yells out, the Rainmaker. It calls for the Rainmaker. For
That's what I
Jay
thought
White.
you were going to talk about.
Yeah, which Jay White does not end up doing.
Yeah.
But it just adds lots of layers. Adds lots of layers to it, which is great. Okada does hit the spinning Rainmaker in this match, but then immediately goes for the money clip.
Yep.
And in the commentary, basically Kevin Kelly and Rocky Romero kind of scold him for it.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's like, what are you doing?
Why didn't you go for the Rainmaker? Why did you pull him and go for the Rainmaker?
He had it.
So the match ends when Okada goes for a money clip again, and Jay White just shrugs it off immediately. Just like it doesn't work on him at all.
Yeah.
And then he just hits the Blade Runner, and that's it. A great story. I'm no longer worried about Okada in the G1. I get what they're going for. It didn't work in the Yujiro match. I think it worked here.
It's a relief. It's a relief that there's a story going on.
It is, yeah.
Because it would be really sad if that guy was having problems at this point in time, in this company.
So I'm glad to see that even if he is working injured, I do believe that the back injury is legit. That he's finding a way to be compelling in a main event spot, even considering that.
Right. And of course, Jay White cuts an amazing salt in the wound promo after
great.
that. When he says it's the 2020 J1. So
the J1, yeah. It's either second or third time he's cut a post match promo in the main event slot.
Yeah.
And he's eating it up. He's really savoring it.
He's having a lot of fun. It's clear, and he's making it a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. I'm a little worried because of how often he's winning early on, that he's no longer a viable, they'll flip the switch at some point and he won't be a viable contender anymore. But right now, it's just great to see Jay White shining right now.
Yeah. We're moving on to night 6, B block. We want to talk about the venue here.
Oh, yes,
and
absolutely.
how it has affected the show. It's in a much smaller venue than the other ones have been. They're actually still touring, so that's one thing they're doing that no one here is doing, is they're doing the shows, and each night is a different place.
Yeah.
And it's kind of had a real indie show vibe. The crowd was a lot closer and smaller. I don't know. It changed it a little bit, the presentation.
They're working in Korakuen, which has always been sort of a fan favorite, but in particular with this with the elements of the format they have to work here,
right.
It just the crowd's closer, they're more condensed in. There's less sound. There's less room for the sound to bounce off.
Yeah, all that lost noise.
Yeah,
it's more compacted in, so it seems like I'm sure there's fewer people because it's a smaller place. It seems like there's more people. I don't know. It's an interesting effect. It worked really well.
Yeah.
For the show. I think this is probably the best B block.
Yeah.
Best night of B block action so far.
And honestly, even if the matches weren't all amazing, they were all solid enough to be propelled by a crowd that sounds this good.
Yeah. I don't think there was any real duds or anything like there have been in previous nights.
Yeah.
So, and the crowd definitely responded.
Yeah.
Well, all night long. They didn't become lethargic or anything at any point. It was engaged the whole time.
Yeah. We opened with Yoshihashi defeating Sonata. The crowd was getting into it. That helped the match for sure.
Yeah, it was better than I expected.
It was. Yoshihashi was a lot snappier. The pacing. My issue with Yoshihashi has always been pacing.
Yeah.
And I feel like he finally met a good pace here. Going into it, I thought this was going to be a downer, but it was, solid. The only issue really is that it's just hard to buy into Yoshihashi. His matches are kind of dramaless, but he did end up winning this match.
Right.
Sonata has 0 points. He's 3 matches in, and he just lost to Yoshihashi, and he previously lost to Toru Yano. So he's not having the most dangerous opponents early on. So this leads me to believe that Sonata was the right pick. When he gets the matches that he can't afford to lose, he'll start winning. But he's kind of got to start winning now.
Well, it's like it's the feet to the fire now. So if you want to tell that story, it's time to show something.
Yeah, exactly.
Make a showing of yourself in the next match. We'll see. We'll see if that is where it's going.
Yeah, it'll become clear.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
it'll become
exactly.
clear. So the next match, I think personally it was probably my favorite match of the night was Zack Sabre Jr. against Kenta. This was just a very, very interesting mesh of styles that I didn't expect to mesh, but was honestly one of my favorite kinds of wrestling matches where they sort of have each other scouted and are trying to go to each other.
Yeah, it's slow and cautious. It's like two tigers looking at each other or something. And it felt like Kenta had to make it not a Zack Sabre Jr. match.
Yeah,
That was imperative.
Yeah. We see that it's sort of like Kenta's match style will devastate Zack Sabre Jr. because Zack Sabre Jr. is not a striker.
Exactly.
And he's got sort of a weaker frame.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Zack Sabre Jr.'s match style will devastate Kenta because that's just not, you get rid of his ability to kick or his ability to palm strike or anything like that, and he's done. He can't get offense in.
Yeah, when they go toe to toe, Kenta would usually come out on top.
Yeah.
And then Zack would shoot in and steal the momentum back away.
Yeah.
So it was a great tug of war kind of thing.
Yeah.
The clash of styles in the best way. Sometimes
Exactly.
it's bad.
Yeah.
It was awesome here.
Yeah. Especially because they seem aware of it. Because there are moments where Zack Sabre Jr. will get into a strike battle that he knows he's going to lose,
right?
Just to goad Kenta into doing a back fist that he knows that he can dodge, and then immediately get the momentum back.
Yeah.
It's just, I love psychology like that.
I said it was like an octopus versus a Wolverine at times.
Yeah.
This is a fun match to watch.
Yeah. And of course there was a story going into this. Pre-shutdown, the initial when New Japan shut down for months on end, Moxley had just beaten Suzuki, Zack Sabre Jr. Just runs right out and puts him in a hold and just completely.
Yeah.
So that was obviously where this was going. Was Moxley was going to defend against Zack Sabre Jr. It never happened because Moxley had to go back to US and then the shutdown happened. But this was an opportunity for Zack Sabre Jr. and it sort of became a match where he became the obvious underdog to root for in this match. Again, Zack Sabre Jr. is not a baby face. He's in Suzuki-gun. They're all assholes. But
right.
The way that this G1 has been working, he's being put into situations where, first against evil, he's being put into situations where he's becoming the guy to root for. And it's really interesting because he's just not that guy, but the crowd is buying into it, which is a very interesting dynamic. Zack Sabre Jr. gets a little overzealous with his palm strikes at the end, and he just runs right into a kick by Kenta, and he hits the go to sleep, and that's it. Too overzealous at the end. You needed to remember to wrestle his style of match, but it was interesting to see.
It's like leaving one out there for too long.
Yeah. But that's a great story too.
Yeah,
that someone can make a mistake as simple as that, and that's it.
Yeah, that's an athlete's mistake.
I don't have a whole lot to say about this next match, but the next match we have is Tanashi versus Juice Robinson.
Although it has now been revealed that his new attire is a Blues Brothers.
Yeah,
homage.
They do mention that. Yeah. Yeah, the commentary booth mentioned that
a tattered
was
suit
sort of,
with a hat on, with a fedora on,
which it wasn't immediately apparent to me, but I guess it makes sense now.
I didn't really make that connection, but
I mean, it doesn't necessarily make sense. It's just, but I get what he's going for with it.
It's a very loose interpretation.
Let's say. Exactly. Yeah, it's not like it's cosplay.
Right.
The dynamic I kind of wanted to see is that these guys both have a ton of charisma, and I thought they were going to sort of have a charisma off with the crowd, sort of.
Yeah, what's up with that?
But I don't know. It was just kind of there wasn't a whole lot of drama to it. The only interesting thing was, and this was kind of weird because it wasn't presented in a situation where it would have made the difference to Tanashi, is that Tanashi starts doing hair pulling and he's he's sneaking in belly jabs. Tanashi has never been a heel once in his life.
Well, it's why against Juice?
Yeah, exactly. The finish is Tanashi gets put in the pulp friction attempt, but then he just sort of sneaks up a roll up.
Yeah.
The finish was actually
rolls them up.
The finish was cool, but it just kind of ended up being, it was a fun, quick match, but it was nothing really special.
And this is Tanahashi's first win.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he is 3 nights down and he finally gets a win. I don't really know what's going to happen to Tanahashi in this tournament.
It doesn't feel like it's really his story, so I don't know. And there's lots of guys who are, I'm sure, going to be like that.
Yeah.
There can only be a couple stories probably being told.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, though, if he is, by the end of it, he is, I guess, still a contender. So the next match we have is Evil versus Toru Yano, and
okay, this is kind of awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was,
even though it's terrible.
Yeah. I was really hoping that they'd do something special with this matchup, and they definitely did, because here you have two dudes who have lately been doing nothing but shenanigans, and the shenanigans are new for Evil, but they've been really effective for Evil.
Yeah.
I mean, right from the get-go, you know that you're just getting complete tomfoolery. I mean, so like all the turnbuckles come off.
Right.
Which I forgot they actually named them. I don't have the names, but because Yano matches always take off the turnbuckles, they actually have names for every turnbuckle. Yano goes out to the outside. He tapes Dick Togo to the barricade. The crowd goes as wild as they can again because they love when, you know, his interference comes to an end. By the end of it, you know, everyone's a player now. Dick Togo's back up. He's put a turnbuckle in front of Evil as he's running into it, which I thought was a great spot. I loved that. But it was basically just became a battle of low blows at the end. The ref got low blowed, and then Evil got low blowed.
It was almost like lined up,
it was
like domino style almost.
It was like a literal train of low blows. Because by the end of it...
They were counting them. There's two.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't literally counting, but they called out the second one. I'm like, okay, well, there's enough now that there's a tally.
Yeah.
And it ended up being 7. And as a matter of fact, the last one was a double low blow.
He does the thumbs thing where he jab him like that. And then he rolls Evil up and pins him. I adore this kind of comedy.
I loved this match. It was so fun.
Yeah. And everyone hates Evil right now, so it was nice to see him.
Right.
You know,
it's a nice pylon.
Get destroyed by Yano in 4 minutes.
Absolute schmuck.
Yeah.
Doing comedy well in front of a crowd that can't laugh and stuff is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Because most comedy right now in wrestling is kind of dying. So moving on to the main event.
We have Naito against Goto. I thought this would continue the sort of pattern with Naito going almost the limit, but this was only about 20 minutes.
If they were telling that story, they're not continuing it here, I guess.
Yeah. Which is fine, because this wasn't my favorite Naito main event.
No, I mean, he dragged a lot in the middle. Goto showed his shoulder so much that the injury almost made it seem like he couldn't win.
Yeah,
it didn't seem like he was going to have like a real... I didn't think it seemed like he had a shot of winning.
Yeah.
Not that, you know, it's pro wrestling. Anything can happen. The Kenta Zack Sabre Jr. match was paced so much better. I don't know. There was just something about this. And like I said, it dragged in the middle. You could have cut 8 minutes out of the middle.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, easy.
Yeah. The crowd just is not going to get into Goto anymore. The issue is he has a similar issue as Ishii, but Ishii is just so much better of a wrestler that the crowd will get invested in watching him because they want him to win.
That makes sense.
But the crowd has basically been trained to know that if Goto gets an opportunity, he's not coming through. So there's no reason for them to get invested in him.
Yeah.
So the crowd was very quiet for this, which is
that's
atypical of the Naito.
That's true. I didn't really comment on that, but going back, it was just kind of sedate. There was polite clapping every once in a while, which they do in every match, literally every match.
But you can't really tell. But sometimes you just sort of like feel, oh, they're clapping to clap. They're clapping because they feel like, oh, hey, you did a move, not like they're clapping because they actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like there is a little bit of that there, which It is what it is, I guess. One notable thing I will say is that Naito's Destinos looked a lot better.
Yes, thank goodness, because some of the earlier ones I was worried. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just shaking off some of the rust.
Yeah.
And he looked great. I thought he looked great.
Yeah. So fast, so impactful. The kind of Destinos that you want to see out of
it seemed like maybe he was like overthinking the other ones or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you're just spending too much time. It just needs to be that natural thing where you just roll with it and it looks good. I love it. It's a reason why why he calls it so enthusiastically.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
The other thing I love about the Destino, just to go on a quick little tangent about the Destino, because it's one of the better finishers out there. I don't see that done by anybody else. So many other wrestlers that do like the ripcord lariats or brainbusters or even like knees, like so many people do knees, but like nobody does a Destino. Like there's nobody on the indies that's like doing Destinos and calling it like a like.
And there's no real good reason for that. I mean, you can easily steal it.
But it's just sort of like
it's good that it's still unique.
It's Naito's move. Like when you see that,
maybe that's why.
It's just you just eat that it's synonymous at this point, which is great, especially because considering it wasn't even his original finisher.
Right.
Like he came up with that recently.
Oh, interesting.
Like not recently, but like when he came back after being sort of exiled.
Right, the Naito goes away.
Yeah, that was what he did when he came back. So Naito wins with a Destino and takes this match, and that concludes that night. So at this point, I kind of just want to go through where everyone's standing right now.
Right. So as of, obviously, it's the tournament has progressed farther, but as of these 6 nights, tied for first in Block A, we have Taichi and Jay White with 6 points each.
Yeah.
We have a similar thing on the other side in B block with Yano and Naito. And then you have bringing up behind them in A block. We'll just go down the list. You got Ibushi. Kota Ibushi has 4 points. Jeff Cobb has 2. Okada has 2. Ishii, as we've mentioned, has 0. Will has 4. Takagi has 2. Suzuki has 4. And Yujiro is at 0. And then finishing off B block, we got Tanashi with 2 points. Juice Robinson with 4. Goto with 2. We mentioned Yano already. Yoshihashi sitting at 2 points. Sonata has 0 points. Zack has 2. Kento has 4. And Evil has 2.
So, obviously, I think it's clear to see that the people who are at top right now, they're not necessarily the people that, going in, we sort of perceived, except for Jay White.
Except for Jay.
It's going to be difficult for Jay White. I think it's going to be difficult for Jay White to hold that lead. He'd have to, most people end the G1 with, 12 to 14 points, and that's how they win. They win with that. He's already halfway there. Already. Yeah. And I especially don't think Yano is going to be getting much more points, if any more points, honestly.
That's a good point.
But
there's probably going to be some changing around that happens.
Yeah.
Relatively soon, honestly. It probably has already happened, but we're not talking about it yet.
Yeah. I mean, Sonata at 0. We already talked about how he's got to pick up some wins. Mm-hmm. And I definitely do think it's going to be him versus Evil, sort of battling it out. Who's leading that block? But it's definitely interesting to see what we have so far and who's the leaders, who are the spoilers, and who are the people who are being put out there to sort of get you off their scent.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see where these numbers are in the next couple of weeks.
Because at this point, I guess with 6 nights, what's that? About a third of the way through, ish. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
not even
we're
that much,
roughly
maybe.
Yeah, we're roughly a third of the way through.
Yeah. We will be continuing to do 4, as we said, 4 nights at a time. And they'll come out a little bit faster than this. We were waiting on some equipment to show up, so that's another reason why we had a several days delay. So we'll be back with nights 7 through 10.
Yeah.
So please hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
All right. See you next time.
See ya.